For most of my life, I felt broken. It showed up in my relationships, my work, and the way I spoke to myself. No matter how much I achieved, I still felt unworthy, unseen, and alone. But everything changed when I started healing my inner child. I found peace where there used to be chaos, built friendships that actually felt safe, and created a life that feels like me again. I'm Nicole, a foster mom and inner child healing coach, and this is Heal Out Loud. Each week, we'll blend science, soul, and real talk to help you stop feeling broken and start becoming the person you've always needed. Because healing isn't quiet. It's time to heal out loud. Hello, and welcome back to Heal Out Loud. And this is episode 3. And in this episode, we're going to talk about how trauma sabotages relationships. And that's how they become relationships. So let's start by understanding this. You are born pure, no programming, no nothing. Then you are brought into this world in a family. You start seeing how your mom and dad or your caretakers interact with you, and you start collecting beliefs about yourself. As kids, we make everything, every single thing, mean something personal about ourselves. We do not know how to differentiate that our mom had a bad mood because she has her own feelings. Instead, we make that mean that our mom is in a bad mood because we are not good enough. We do not understand that dad doesn't spend much time with us because he's busy working for the family. Instead, as kids, we make it mean that we are not lovable enough, and that's why your dad is not spending enough time with you. Then there also might be siblings in the household, and you start seeing that your mom and dad interact differently with them, and you start taking these things personal. Anyways, any dynamic that starts taking place in the household that you're brought up in, you make it mean something about you, personally about you, when you're a kid. For example, if one of your caretakers falls ill or passes away, or there's separation between the parents, or shouting and slamming doors, or there's some preferences between siblings, or a sibling who has a condition which requires more attention than you, or for example, sleeping at your grandparents' house and you wanted to sleep with your parents instead, or going to a birthday party which you don't want to go to, or maybe having younger siblings who are staying home with your mom while you had to go to school. It could be that simple. Of course, depending on the intensity of the level of abandonment that happens in your childhood, this will show itself differently in life. The intensity will not be the same as if you were abandoned and left on the streets. But nonetheless, you still made it mean something bad about you when you were a kid. So it is very, very important to understand that you do not need to experience major trauma in your life to have limiting beliefs about yourself. It could be, for example, something like, I don't know, maybe you're a big dreamer and your dad was a too realistic person who crushed your dreams. And that made you feel like there's something wrong with you, or that you're too much, or that you're weird. And it's very important to understand that as kids, we never point fingers at our parents, as when we're growing up, they're literally our world. So instead, what we do as kids is make that event that's happening mean something negative about ourselves instead of something negative about our parents. For example, let's say your dad has anger issues, and every time you disrespect him, he gets very angry. As a kid, you're not going to say, yes, my dad had his own childhood trauma, so that's why he has anger issues. That's why nobody can speak to him. No, as a kid, you're going to say, what's wrong with me? Why am I so different? Why do I really annoy my dad so much? Then these beliefs are stored in your subconscious brain. Then you go out into the world as a teen, as an adult, and you keep replaying everything from those beliefs. I like to compare this to a computer. It's like you have this computer, it has its software, and if you're going to try and input anything that doesn't agree with the software, it's not going to work. And that's how our brain works. We are all born with a pure brain, and then according to the conditioning, to the things that we see in our family, at school, in the world around us, we start building these beliefs. If growing up you felt alone and not good enough, or like there's something wrong with you, or that you're not enough, or maybe that you're the odd one out, then you get into a relationship and you start wondering, why does this person love me? Maybe it's because they haven't seen the real me yet. And once they see the real me, they're going to notice that I'm not good as they think, and they will leave me too, just the same like my parents made me feel. Of course, this does not happen on a conscious level. would save us so much time if this happened on a conscious level. But you're not even aware that this is happening, because this happens from the programming that is stored in your subconscious brain, from that software that I mentioned earlier. Maybe as a kid, you learned that all women are entitled or that all men cheat. And so you keep on living from that belief and sabotaging your own relationship from that belief. So maybe, let's say, for example, you attracted a really loving, kind woman into your life, but you have this belief about women, right? So even though she's kind, she's loving, and she has really beautiful qualities, this is not matching to the belief you have about women. So what happens is you start being paranoid, you start wondering when she's going to turn into this entitled woman, and you start becoming insecure, you start not trusting her. Or else, let's say, for example, for the women, let's say you have a belief that all men cheat. So what happens is, even if you have a guy in your life who is very loyal and would never cheat on anybody because it's his value, you start doubting him, you start trying to become controlling, you start judging him, and then he starts walking on eggshells around you. And then there's this division between both of you, and then you're like, aha, you see, I was right. I knew that he was the same as other men. But in reality, it's because of the dynamic that's been created from your belief. And I am guilty as charged on this one. I had this belief from my own childhood because of what I've seen growing up in my family, that when I think about my dad and when I think about my grandpa and the things they've done to their loved ones, I had this belief growing up that you can't trust any men, that all men are the same, so on and so forth. Moving forward, if love for you felt unsafe as a kid, when your attachment with your new partner starts kicking in, you start fearing love. You start avoiding it, you start pulling away, you start fearing that they're going to suffocate you, and maybe love for you as a kid meant that you had to chase after your parents for attention. And so when attachment in your adult relationship starts kicking in, you start becoming anxiously attached. You start wanting to be with your partner 24/7, constantly texting them, constantly calling them. You forget about your hobbies. You don't even enjoy your time with your friends anymore because all you care about is your partner. So yes, trauma affects relationships, and it affects friendships. It affects how we go out into the world. But the relationship we have with our parents when we're living with them, it's the relationship that triggers us the most. But then when we are in a relationship with our partners in our adult lives, those are going to be the relationships that are going to trigger you the most, more than your friendships. Why? Because living with your partner is going to mimic the relationship you had with your parents, because you used to live with them too. Basically, we have this template from our childhood of how relationships should look like. And we continue building on that not so solid foundation. And this is how attachment styles are created. Attachment styles fall into two main categories: secure attachment, meaning you had a secure upbringing or worked your way through trauma and have shifted into secure attachment. And then there is insecure attachment, which includes avoidant attachment, anxious attachment, disorganized attachment, and other forms of attachment under it. Avoidant and anxiously attached people both fear the same thing: the fear of being seen, fear of being abandoned, and fear of being hurt, because that's how they felt in their childhood. It's true, avoidant and anxiously attached people react very differently, but they both come from the same insecure attachment. For example, from my own personal experience, I was both anxiously attached with those who were avoidantly attached, and I was an avoidant with those who were anxiously attached to me. So it doesn't mean that because in one relationship you are anxiously attached, that in all of your relationships you're going to be anxiously attached to. It's just an insecure attachment style, and you're going to flow between avoidantly attached and anxiously attached. When you're anxiously attached, you want to stick to your partner's body 24/7, literally. They become your only source of happiness and the reason why you're alive. On the other hand, when you're avoidantly attached, you need as much space as possible to be able to love the person, because being close to them scares the heck out of you. And, drumroll please, most often times than not, anxiously attached people attract avoidance and vice versa. And you might be saying, but why? Everyone says this, but I don't understand why. The reason is because our nervous system feels safe in the beginning around people who have qualities that we do not have. We admire those qualities in those people, and that is how the trauma bond starts. You keep replaying and reliving the same experiences you had as a kid, but now, instead of with your parents, it's happening with your romantic partner. If as a kid you felt not good enough, always left behind, you will attract an avoidant partner who will continue reaffirming just that. If you felt judged, suffocated, and controlled as a kid, most probably you will attract an anxiously attached person who will continue reaffirming just that. Until you realize this pattern and decide to do something about it, you will continue attracting the same person in a different body and a different face. The good news is that you can heal from insecure attachment to becoming securely attached through inner child healing. And next week's episode is going to be about just this. How to heal to stop attracting people from your wounds, which in return continues reaffirming the beliefs you've carried since childhood, and instead attract the relationship of your dreams. If today's episode made you think, laugh, cry, or want to yell at the universe, good. That means something moved. Make sure you hit follow, share this with a friend who's healing too, and remember, you don't have to heal quietly anymore. See you next week for more truth bombs, breakthroughs, and a little bit of magic.